Good penguin. And Polish? Penguin? Penguin. Oh, easy. All right. And good morning, Joomla Polska! Woo! Good morning. Good morning. Polska. Good morning. It is terrific to be here. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting. Many thanks to all of these incredible sponsors that have helped make this happen, including government ministries and agencies here in Poland. It's incredible to see this type of support here, especially in a new Joomla day, for a new Joomla Day country. This is fabulous. So I'm very thankful to be here. Most importantly, thank you to the wonderful folks that put on this Joomla Day. The team has been fabulous, so thank you very much. All right. So this is a safe tweeting zone. We have internet access in the room here, or people have phones, so please tweet all good things and not so good things using this here. This is my Twitter name. We have something important to do before we start. It's going to require your help. So we have to wake up the lake. To do this, I need everybody to stand up. Thank you. Everybody stand up. Crazy American comes to Poland, forces people to stand up. Okay, you may have seen this before, but we are going to do this here in Poland. I'm going to say this, and you're going to say this, okay? Ready? When I say Joomla, you say rocks. Joomla! Rocks. Joomla! Rocks. When I say Polska, you say rocks. Polska! Rocks. Polska! Rocks. When I say Joomla, you say rocks. Joomla! Rocks. Joomla! Rocks. Thank you very much, Joomla Day Poland. Thank you. All right. That helps me more than it helps you. I only had this much coffee today, Brian. I need to exercise a little bit. All right. No. Okay. So I once in the past was the president of Open Source Matters. Do people know what Open Source Matters is? Okay, the nonprofit organization that helps the Joomla project. So I once was that, but I've retired. I've gone back into the business world, and now I get a chance to see Brian and Ronnie and Nick and others on the road giving presentations. But I'm very happy to be back here, land of Ozimeks. This is Ozimek, somewhere in Poland. This is the crest of the town. It's really great for me to be back here. My ancestors left Poland for America about 80 years ago. And when I spoke with Roddick, and he was saying that having a Joomla Day Poland was something that he wanted to see, I really wanted to be here. So thank you for inviting me and letting me come back here. This is very important to me. We've already done this. I've learned how to say my name correctly. You need to understand that in the U.S., we take all the beautiful names and we make them sound very ugly and bad. So in America, it's just Ozimek. That just doesn't sound as good. But good to be back here. I live part of my time in Washington, D.C., part of my time in San Francisco, and a lot of my time on airplanes. Every once in a while, I'll get lucky and I'll have an entire row to myself. It'll be like first class without having to pay a first class ticket. So that's very nice. I'm the CEO of a company called PICnet, and we do web development for nonprofit organizations and public agencies and government. So I play a lot of golf in the office, and I act like I know what I'm doing. But one thing I know I am not doing is developing. I am not a developer. So Brian and I, unfortunately, aren't here to answer your developer questions, but Nick and Ronnie and others will definitely do so. So don't worry, you're expecting this to be a long, boring developer keynote. This will be different than that, I promise you. We'll talk about things like my old car that I used to get to drive. Unfortunately, now I get to drive this. I used to fly this around New York. They weren't so happy about that, so they gave me this instead. But the most important thing I had a chance to do as OSM president was I got to tell you all the secrets, all the small hidden things that they want to hide from you, that they don't want you to know. And my job was to make sure you knew what that was. And now that I'm retired, I have more freedom to tell you more about what I think is going on in the Joomla world and how we all can contribute to it being even better. So today, there's two things I want to do. One is I want to pull the curtains back and give you guys a better understanding of what I think is happening in the Joomla world, and just give us an opportunity to really think and understand where we as a community can go together in the future. Does that sound okay? Okay, good. So I love this quote from Thomas Edison, who said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." And I really believe this makes sense in the Joomla world. It doesn't mean that you need to come into Joomla with a computer science degree or some sort of master's in design. All of us have special talents that we can contribute back to the Joomla world. So I'd like to start off with a story that is about a gentleman named Kyle Ledbetter. Do people here know who Kyle Ledbetter is? Does anybody have heard his name? Okay, good. So Kyle Ledbetter approached me about a year and a half ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, at a conference in Texas, actually in Dallas, Texas, which I had never been to before. And he was giving a presentation on design. And now he's a very passionate Joomla supporter. And he said, "Ryan, the design in the Joomla administrator, it's just awful. It needs to be better. But I feel every time I want to contribute, it's difficult, and there's all these processes, and nobody listens to me, and it's just, he was just very frustrated." So we slowly poured some glasses of water. Later, that turned into beer, and I'm sure shots of whiskey or something after that. And we said, "Well, what can we do about this?" And I said, well, Kyle, maybe you should just start contributing. Just, if you have an idea, why don't we post it onto the forums and see what happens? Why don't you go ahead and just toss out some ideas on Twitter and see what happens? And over time, with a lot of work and a lot of perspiration, Kyle has pushed forward almost single-handedly in the leadership of the new Joomla user interface. You may have seen some of that yesterday, the Joomla 3.0, a complete overhaul of the way we will use Joomla, because one person said, "I'm tired of the way Joomla looks." And instead of just being frustrated about it, he said, "I'm going to put the energy into making it happen." And he doesn't have a master's degree in design. He is not a computer scientist. He's a person that said, "I see a problem, I want to help out," and just started doing things. Our success of a community has a lot to do with wanting to contribute and work hard around the world and drinking good beer. Obviously, you guys know what good beer and good vodka is. I tried that yesterday. I learned that you don't just take a shot this large. You're supposed to drink it slowly. I didn't do that. But our success is worldwide. This is not something born only in America, born only in the United Kingdom. All of us around the world can contribute to our success as a community. Yesterday's technology came from places like this. This is Xerox PARC, the laboratory for the Xerox company in Palo Alto, California. Now, Xerox PARC is where many of us who use computers today can say was the founding company to think of things like icons and desktops and mice for your computers. That's where that research and the technology came from. That's a very dark photo. This is Joomla Day, Brazil, from I think 2 or 3 years ago. Today's innovators, the people that are changing technology today, are folks like those in Brazil, are folks like you all here today. It's not people sitting in a large corporation thinking, what can we do to make the world a better place? It's us together, coming together to say, we want to make a change, and we want to contribute to a better world. So we're living in this changing world. But some questions. What's our role? How do we help out? What are ways in which we can ensure it becomes a better place? And what are the tools that we need to build so we can move us forward as humanity and build new software to make it easier for people around the world to share their message? So things are changing in the world, right? There's things like this. There's things like this happening. Things like this. The question is, what are the ways we in the Joomla community can contribute to this change? The signs that we see here, it doesn't say, thank you, Oracle, for your amazing databases, or thank you, IBM, for your wonderful laptops. It says, thank you, Facebook, thank you, Twitter, and I think, thank you, Joomla. And if that's where the world is going, then we all have a role to play in that. So my question, when is the software we build more than just ones and zeros, more than just software code? When is it doing something more than that? Well, I would argue that when countries like Mongolia, a landlocked country, when it can power its entire federal government using open source software like Joomla, I think that's a pretty significant change in the world. I think when there are more governments around the world that use Joomla than are members of the United Nations, I think that's pretty powerful. I think that we're seeing that's when it's more than just ones and zeros. I think when important charities that are helping those less fortunate, like the Polaris Project, that's helping end human slavery around the world by using Joomla software, that is critical. That is important. And I think when we see large corporations like eBay and others that are using Joomla to push forward innovations, that's when I think Joomla is more than just software. It's something that's helping us change society. So what do I see happening? I see Joomla in our world becoming more social, obviously more global, and of course, more mobile. And with these things combined together, we need to envision where we want to be as a community moving forward. It can't just be what's happening today. It needs to be what we can imagine for the future. Some of you may have seen charts like this before. This chart is simply saying that in about 2014, if not earlier, there will be more people connected to the internet on mobile phones than using desktop computers. And I'm very proud of the work of Kyle and others in the community to say, with Joomla 3.0 and beyond, we are going to be a mobile-ready community. We're going to use mobile-ready software, and we're going to make sure that we are ready for the next generation of technologists. So we need to be able to embrace this change. We have the tools and are positioned perfectly to move forward for this. And we have something called the Joomla platform as well as the Joomla CMS that's going to allow us to get there into the future. So every generation has had its challenge. You know, in the 1960s in America, our baby boomer generation had the challenge of President Kennedy that said, we are going to put a man on the moon, right? That's what we said. What's our challenge today? What's our challenge in the Joomla community moving forward? Well, I would say one of the things that we need to look at is the next generation of developers and users in the Joomla community. This is a photo of myself and my younger sister, Jamie, at the University of California in Santa Barbara. Now, let me tell you, if you want to study in the United States, you want to go to the University of California at Santa Barbara. Her classes were 500 feet from the beach. She could go from her dorm into the water at any time. I don't know how students study in an environment like that. But being the geeky brother that I am, I asked her some questions that didn't have anything to do with surfing or sunbathing. And I said, Jamie, so when you're in your sorority and you're with your friends, when you want to share your photos, how do you share them? Do you email them to each other? She said, oh, no, we just post them on Facebook. Oh, okay, cool. So when you guys are organizing events, where do you tell people about your events? Do you, put flyers online? Do you make a website for it? She said, oh, no, we just use Facebook. There was about 20 questions that ended with, we just use Facebook. And it made me realize that this next generation of university students and young people are used to the cloud, are used to these services being provided to them. And to an open source community, recognize that the times are changing and that if young people are going to come and make Joomla a better place, we need to understand where they are coming from with them. The next generation of businesses, and what do we need to think about for them? Well, a lot of them have very expensive proprietary databases and services, and open source software like Joomla provides that glue, the connection between their existing systems. And with Joomla, they're able to connect these systems to make it more powerful for their employees and their company. An example of this is eBay. eBay has more than 16,000 employees that are using Joomla and the Joomla platform, connected with their already internal proprietary databases to help employees make sense and visualize and communicate with each other by using Joomla as that interface to connect these already existing systems. And the next generation of users, what do they want? They want easy. They want one button they can press. They barely have time to check their email, and they're spending most of their time looking at lolcats and other random things on the internet. We need to make the software as easy as possible for them. So this is a community challenge. This isn't one person. We all need to work together. We can all contribute to making this better. The question is how, right? So I've said we're going to put a Joomla man or woman on the moon. We've got a lot to work for. We've got crazy users, a new developer community. How can we do this? Well, let's look at some very strange things that sociologists and people that have doctoral degrees have learned. So there's this concept of carrots and sticks. This concept that if you dangle a reward, if you put a reward in front of somebody, they tend to go towards that. You can encourage them to make change, to do something new. Well, what happened was the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, worked with a small institution called the U.S. Federal Reserve, and they said, what is it that motivates people to change, to do things they wouldn't normally do? And how can we replicate it? Maybe it's just money, right? I live in America, and we just think if you pay somebody more, you're going to get better results. Well, they found something that was quite interesting. They found that this concept of carrots and sticks, of rewarding people for doing things, it works, but it really only works when it's a simple task. When you're just moving things down an assembly line, when you're just doing something simple. In that case, you pay more, you get better results. But what's really interesting is that when it became critical thinking tasks, when it required some thought, some intellectual curiosity, as people continued to get paid more, the results were worse. You pay them more, and the results got worse. That's very strange. So what they've found is that there are actually 3 important motivators that encouraged people to do better. And the first one was autonomy, which essentially is saying the ability for us to choose the direction of our own life. The second is mastery, that each of us has this innate born urge to get good at something. Maybe it's playing the piano, maybe it's inflating penguins. We all want to get good at something. And then finally, purpose, that we have a desire to become better, a desire to understand where we are in the world and how we can contribute to making it better. Okay, so let's think about this. In the open source world like Joomla, we have very intelligent, bright people that are very busy with their lives, working on 2 laptops and drinking soda and being on the phone, all at the same time, that are dedicating tons of time to the Joomla community and to the Joomla project for free. These are obviously crazy individuals, strange people. And for some reason, the Joomla community continues to be one of the best open source communities in the world. So I'm not a genius. I didn't think of this idea or this concept. I'll make sure this is online. This is a terrific video that explains why very smart people act very crazy and help contribute to projects like Joomla. So what I think is happening, I think that people like us are aiming for some sort of a higher purpose. We might not think of it directly every day, but the reason why we're here is we're acting economically irrationally because we all want to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. That we all want to be part of something that we know when we walk away, we feel good about what we've done to contribute back to this Joomla community. So people know who this guy was, right? Mr. Steve Jobs over at Apple. When you worked for Steve Jobs at Apple, you didn't work there to make the iPhone. He said, we are here to make a dent in the universe. And when you work at Google, you don't work at Google to make a better search engine or to make better Gmail. People work at Google because they want to solve humanity's toughest problems. This is much bigger than technology. This is about being purpose-driven. And that all of us in the Joomla community can feel that sense of saying there's something bigger than ourselves. And the little bit we contribute is making our world better. So just briefly here, I thought I would share with you my own open source story in hopes that it'll spark that idea for you as well. I went to the University of California at Los Angeles, and while I was there, I graduated and I said, you know, after I finish college, I'm going to do what a lot of Americans do, which is travel through Europe. I had a chance to go to Italy, to the UK. I came back here to Poland. I was just vacationing and enjoying my time. Meanwhile, one of my good friends, Gray, was in a much different place. He was in Kosovo and Albania. And many of you remember what Kosovo and Albania was like in 1999. It wasn't a good place to be. It was a very difficult time in the world. And he said, Ryan, if you can get down to Rome, I'm going to put you on this plane, and I want you to see what's happening here. Because if there's a way that we can use technology and open source software to help people out, then this might be the absolute best time to do that. So I said, okay. So I went on this plane. And when I got to Kosovo and when I got to Albania, we saw things like this. Just rows and rows of this. thousands and thousands of people displaced from their homes all over Albania and neighboring countries of Kosovo. And we said, well, the challenge that they had was people wanted to help. People wanted to give aid. But when they did that, they didn't have the technology necessary to make sure the right things arrived at the right time. So sweaters and jackets would come in the middle of summer. Food that would perish and be bad would arrive 3 weeks late. And it was just it just clicked in my mind that technology was not available to help these people help others that needed this aid. So I hopped back on this plane, went back to school to finish my graduate degree, and I said, there's got to be some way I can contribute, I can help out. And I started our company called PICnet to help use open source software to specifically contribute to non-government organizations, to humanitarian relief groups, to find some way to use free software like Joomla to help give back to those in need, like those in Kosovo and in Albania. And that focus was just being purpose-driven. It wasn't because I said, yeah, I just want to use the technology. It was something inside me that said, if I can just give the little bit that I know about technology, maybe I can contribute to something bigger. So in the open source world, we're not just lazy receivers of technology eating at the software buffet. We get to be more than that. We all have these very unique talents, like throwing knives and chainsaws, I guess. We're more than just users of this software. We're empowered contributors. And you get to have a t-shirt that says one up. We get to contribute. You being here today is contributing to making Joomla better. You going home and writing translations in Poland for Joomla is making Joomla better. You using your Joomla knowledge and helping out businesses and organizations and governments to use Joomla is making Joomla better and helping make the world a better place. From small business owners to individuals, using Joomla helps make the world a better place. So I've got 3 requests for you. Find out what that motivation is. My motivation was to give assistance in humanitarian relief. But yours can be in building a business. It could be in helping a school. Whatever that is, find what that motivation is. Bring it to your business. Bring it to your volunteering efforts. And most importantly, bring it into Joomla. By contributing to the Joomla community with what motivates you, what you're most passionate about, we're going to get the best out of what you have to offer. And we're going to continue to move us forward. My core open source value is very simple. It's Michelle Obama and Barack Obama doing a little fist pump. And what this means to me is that the relationships we build in the Joomla community are more important than the tools themselves. Which I know some developers in the room are saying, no, it's the code, it's the code, it's the code. I'm here to say, no, it's not. The code is very important, but the relationships are more important. So I probably lost half of the developer community, and I apologize, but development and code is extremely important. Without it, there is no Joomla. I can understand that. But without the relationships, without the passion, there is no Joomla either. And we can innovate and grow together as a community with that motivation and with those relationships being built. So the ride that we've had in the Joomla community has been incredible. I'd love to just share with you what we've been through as a community and where I think we're going in the future. And I have until the bottom of the hour? Until the 30? Okay, good. Excellent. I love showing graphs like this. This is incredible charts. Any economist, any business person loves to show charts that go up and to the right like this. You can see I stopped keeping track in 2011 because it just kept going up and it wouldn't fit on my slide anymore. But we've got growth in the user community of Joomla, over 239 users every day. We're seeing growth in the number of discussions. And this is just in the international site. This is not including the Polish site or the Spanish site or the French site. We see growth here, over 24 forum posts every minute. We see growth in our ecosystem of software development and the extensions and the add-ons that are being created, to the point that we're seeing over 149 new extensions added every month. Now, have folks here ever submitted an extension to the extensions directory? All right, great. And have ever had any problems in adding that or having it added in a timely fashion? All right, some of us, yes, okay. One thing I want us all to remember is this. Joomla is 100% run by volunteers. 100% run by volunteers, people that have other lives outside of Joomla. Sometimes we forget our children and our spouse and our friends. But when we see challenges like this, it's important for us to recall we're all volunteers. We're all trying to do the best we can. And what we can do in extensions and add-ons is continue to find ways to help out. And there will be challenges, as I think Brian says, we're one big Joomla family, and families have challenges quite often, but there's often ways for us to contribute. We've seen cleaner platform code. We've seen that 2.7% of the top 1 million websites today run on Joomla, which is the second largest content management system, if we call WordPress a content management system, and I'm sure there's some debate on that. But what's more important is this, is that nearly 75% of those top 1 million websites are not using a CMS at all. So that's great that we can all fight and challenge ourselves to get better for the 2% or the 1%. But when 75% of the top 1 million sites on the web are not even using a CMS, that is a huge market. That's a huge opportunity for us to contribute as open source folks. So Joomla is this massive ship with tons of downloads, huge community, continuing to grow in more than 60 languages around the world. It's massive. It's being led by volunteers that have passion. These passions and motivations, I believe, are focused on these 3 cons here. And so the question is, how do we move forward in our leadership? What are the ways in which we can lead by example and lead the next generation of volunteers? I'd like to think that we do that with mission and vision and values, and most importantly, again, beer. Beer seems to be very important in our open source community. But our mission is actually pretty simple, and this is on the Joomla website. Our mission is to provide a flexible platform for digital publishing and collaboration. Now, we as a community can interpret that. We can change that. We can think of new ways to see that moving forward. But this is what we strive for. And our path to getting here has been rather interesting. Most open source projects take on one of 2 different leadership styles. The first is an organizational leadership type that's a corporate type. You know, it's like Oracle, which now runs, operates, and tries to steward projects like Open Office and others, is a corporate backer that is leading the direction. Then there's a benevolent dictator perspective, that you have one person that thought of the idea, that started the project. This is a Lego Linus Torvalds of the Linux project. And that this one person is the one person that at the end of the day says, this is the way we shall go. And everybody follows him or her. And then there's Joomla. These crazy, weird hippies, all of us in the room today that don't have one person that is telling us what to do, that don't have one company telling us what to do, but somehow we're one of the most successful open source projects ever. Without one person telling us what to do, without one company paying us to move forward. We did this on our own as a community. One of our great supporters, Alan Gunn, said, I want to help Joomla because if you can succeed, there's hope for distributed leadership models of all types in the open source world. Distributed leadership, meaning that there isn't just one person who is pushing the entire community forward. Even when I was president of OSM, the leadership of our code was not for me. The leadership of events was not for me. The leadership of all sorts of things ended up being distributed amongst a team and amongst folks that did it for free and out of love for Joomla. So our leadership has evolved. We started off with a core team. We had Open Source Matters, which was the nonprofit. And over time, what we found was the goal to make Open Source Matters as weak and as simple as possible, and to make the core team, which essentially did everything, as strong as possible. I'm going to skip through this. Over time, this is what happens. This is what happens when people start to realize, oh my goodness, I have a child that I haven't seen because I've been behind my computer working all day on Joomla. Or I have a business that I forgot to run and operate. Now I'm not making enough income. We hit a hangover period in the days where the core team just couldn't keep up with everything that needed to be done. The result was a significant shift in the way Joomla was led. And it led to this, where we have a team that's been in charge of the code, a team that's been in charge of helping guide the community, and a team that has been in charge of legal and financial and marketing matters. In the end, we've still been very cautious patriots. We've been people that have been excited to push forward, but we also know where we've been, and we are always a little concerned about where we're going. So as explorers, we've been treading down some new areas, and as you've probably known, Joomla 3.0 Beta 1 has been released. Has anybody tried it, looked at it, seen it, heard Brian talk about it yesterday? Is that right, Brian? Yes? Okay. There'll be more of it if you want to see it today. Joomla 3.0 Beta has a lot of new things, including an entirely new interface, which is incredible and will continue to grow. A design that is responsive for the administrator, so that if you're looking at on a mobile phone or on a tablet, it looks great. Updated framework, database support for Postgres, and really just a lot of new additions under the hood. Today's Joomla is also being supported by huge corporations like Microsoft that has been supporting a number of Joomla days, including this Joomla day, is that correct? Many Joomla days around the world, which is fantastic. It's incredible because people see me put Microsoft on the screen and they say, what is going on? Microsoft said open source was a cancer, something that was going to destroy the technology world. They've since changed where their direction has been and said, we want to contribute and support. So I know that many people are thankful of the work and support that they've done. Big companies like eBay have been contributing and using Joomla. And of course, for today's web and today's tools and today's engineers, it's important that we know when you try to use a gigantic hammer to post up a very nice painting, you'll probably get a gigantic hole in your wall, and it's important that we're using the right tools and educating the people with the right processes. So I would say our community strives for powerful tools for our developers, tools that can be scaled for implementers, for people that are growing and using Joomla, and user-friendly tools. And we're seeing this, all three of these things, in Joomla 3.0 and in our framework. And it leads to this. Over 34 million downloads of Joomla. And that's just from the joomlacode.org site. That's not any Polish translation packages for Joomla or any other Joomla downloads around the world. So Joomla is this massive ship again, right? It's this huge community with 34 million downloads. We're also trying to support these small boats, the small businesses, and the individuals that want to contribute to Joomla. So we're not just this, but we're also this. So how do we move this large ship? What do I think the future looks like for Joomla? Well, I think it's important that we recognize what we're good at. We're great at having a stable platform, a large and growing third-party community, but we also need to understand some of our weaknesses. When you're this big, it's tough to move very quickly, and sometimes change takes a while, and sometimes change can be painful, and lots of discussions and arguments can happen because of it. And I think we are we're hiding one of the most important differentiators, one of the important things that makes Joomla different, and that is the framework. Do people know what the Joomla framework is, the Joomla platform? Have you heard of this? This is great. This is terrific. Many times it's one person who raises her hand, and everybody else, this is new. The framework is really the core libraries of Joomla. It's the things that enable applications. So the Joomla CMS that we all know and love lives on top of the framework. So I think what we need to do is elevate this discussion quite a bit. I think that we're evolving as a community to something more than just a CMS. So we've seen spectrums like this before, where on this end we have, what is this? WordPress, great. And on this end, all right. And then right in the middle we have Joomla here, right? And oftentimes we see this as ease of use, simple blogging, and on the right, the most complex thing ever created. I like Joomla, or I like Drupal people as well. I have to joke every once in a while. Yes. So I think that the difference between the three of these is the following. It's the framework. The Joomla framework is what makes us different and what's taking us off of the CMS spectrum. Because both WordPress and Drupal do not have this framework. So what is this framework? What is it that's going to make this different? Okay, so are there any developers in the room? Any people write code? All right, excellent, good. Don't be shy. We're in a safe environment here. All right, so I hope we can wake up now for the developers, because I put you to sleep about 20 minutes ago, and I have 10 minutes left here. The framework is really that underlying code. Folks can contribute to the framework and the platform by going to GitHub. GitHub.com is a very popular place. It's where the Joomla project lives. And what you can do is you can fork the framework. There's more than 275 forks of the Joomla platform. Now, this can just be a fork for you to make your own changes and then to submit some changes back, a place for you to see how it works. But that's pretty impressive. In fact, the Joomla CMS is also on GitHub, and we've seen a 98% of forks or increases of personal use of the CMS in just 6 months. This is huge change that's starting to happen. Big developer change that's going on right now in our Joomla community. But wait, aren't forks bad? Forks are awful. Forks are a 4-letter word that you're not supposed to say. In open source, it's a very scary thing. When somebody yells fork, the whole community gets in a big argument about what's going to happen next. The answer is no. The forks are okay. Forks are a way for us to innovate and to change and to grow. In fact, it was interesting when I talked to Louis Landry here. This is in Joomla Day, South Africa. We're walking through of South Africa, maybe with a few 6-packs of beer, Again, beer. God, it always happens. And he said, I haven't had this much fun contributing to Joomla since Joomla first started. And I like to think of Lewis as one of the godfathers of the Joomla architecture and the Joomla project. So when he gets excited about what the platform and the framework can do as a community, I get pretty interested. Because I think if somebody like himself or Nicholas or others who have been around as developers in our community that are seeing the potential, well, that's pretty cool stuff. So let's see what can we do with this Joomla platform. Well, in Chicago last year, we actually built a couple of Joomla apps. I'll show you some examples. In Cape Town, South Africa, we built an app. In Brazil, we built an app. These are all Joomla days around the world. In Austin, Texas, we drank lots of beer and forgot to build an app. In the UK, we built 2 apps. In Israel, we built an app. In New York, we built an app. In Denmark, we had lots of good beer, and I think we forgot to build an app there. That's right. So in Poland, what can we do? We can drink. What if we drank beer and built an app for once? We have a problem being able to do both at the same time. 1 second. So what can we do beyond just drinking beer, possibly? Yes, build an app to count the beer that we've already had. Well, let me show you some examples, because many people here aren't developers and don't know what the Joomla platform means. This is an example of a command line interface. And again, the screen is kind of dark, and I get kind of scared when I see black screen and green text. But imagine that we're not scared. And this allows us, with the Joomla platform, to build apps that can do things with Joomla like publish tweets from Twitter directly onto a website through one line at a command prompt onto your Joomla website using Joomla code, so that a tweet can end up showing and being populated right in your article manager. All right, that's pretty interesting. We can go ahead and publish it on the front end. We can do more things like pulling photos automatically from places like Instagram and Flickr and Facebook and post them directly onto a website using this basic command line interface. No Joomla administrator, just some code. You can type one line and it just goes onto your website. All right, that's getting a little more interesting. For folks that have built Joomla components and add-ons, there's oftentimes a lot of basic folders and files you need to create. Well, in London at Joomla Day UK last year, somebody built a Joomla platform app that with one line of code, build Joomla component, and then the name of your component, you could build all the basic scaffolding necessary to build your Joomla component. All right, now it's getting a little more interesting. Somebody in Joomla Day UK said, well, gosh, I want to be able to monitor all of my Joomla websites that I have and make sure that they're up and they're running and to see if there's any problems with them. He was going to use something else. Instead, he went ahead and turned the lights on and went ahead and he used the Joomla platform to make a new app to monitor his website using Joomla. You can even export your entire Joomla website with one command line to HTML if for some reason you had to do that. You could do that with one line from somebody that has built a Joomla app down in Brazil. And there's a number of other examples that are out there. The Joomla platform is allowing us to go beyond just writing content on a website, beyond just writing blog posts and saying to ourselves, as developers, we can do something more. So this is important to me because I think in the Joomla community, we can help the world avoid this. These are people waiting to find jobs in the United States. I think what we can do with the Joomla platform and the changes is take the skills that we as developers have in Joomla and apply them to much more than just writing content on websites and building blogging tools. We can do much more. We can build platform applications for mobile devices, for desktop computers, for many things that go beyond just learning a new type of software and instead being able to use the knowledge we have in Joomla. So to wrap this up, my question then is, how do we get there? What's the steps that we need to do here to help us move forward? Well, first we've learned that we can change the pace, we can change the speed, we can change the sandbox, we can change where we build code, and we can change the methodology. We can change the way we do things together. So we've changed the pace by going from a feature-based release cycle into a time-based release cycle. In fact, Brian was so nice as to send me a nice little video that I'd like to show here, if I can make this happen. Let's see here. Where's my mouse? Okay. Hey, look at that.
Let me take 2 minutes of your time to help you understand Joomla versions. Understanding Joomla versions and when updates come out is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Number 1, there are 3 major versions of Joomla. Joomla 1, 2, and now 3. Number 2, each version has short-term releases, each with 7 months of support, leading up to the 0.5 release, which is the LTS version, or long-term support release, and will be supported for around 2 years. The LTS release is the stable, reliable version you should use. The current LTS for Joomla 1 is 1.5, and the LTS for Joomla 2 is 2.5. The first Joomla 3 release will be 3.0, and around a year later, we'll see the LTS release, Joomla 3.5. Number 3. Most Joomla sites should stay with the 0.5 version, unless they need the new features from a new release cycle, or you just love to be on the leading edge. Now here's how that works in the real world. If you're still on Joomla 1.5, you should migrate to 2.5. Support for 1.5 will end with the release of Joomla 3.0. Now, Joomla 1.5 is a safe and secure platform that has had very few serious security problems in the 5 years since it's been released. You won't have any problems immediately if you stay with 1.5, but it's worth updating to a version that is supported by the Joomla team. If you're currently on Joomla 2.5, you could stay there and you'll be supported until at least the end of 2013. If you're interested in starting a new site or moving to Joomla 3, well then, here's what you need to know. Starting with Joomla 3.0, there'll be a series of short-term releases until Joomla 3.5, the LTS for Joomla 3, is released around September 2013. Joomla 2.5 is a fantastic version of Joomla, and many people won't move to Joomla 3 until this point, when Joomla 3 is completely reliable. So that's it. Understanding Joomla versions. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
All right, so that gives you a little bit of an overview as to what we've changed in just the release cycle of the Joomla community. I know that I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip up slides. You know, I'll just leave it on this slide for right now. I want to end just by making an important point again. We live in an amazing time, and we have some of the most incredibly passionate people in the world working in the Joomla community. We have such an opportunity to make the world a better place by building relationships together that's going to allow us to grow. And I really believe Joomla is going to be the community and the software that's going to continue to push the world forward in making us more effective and efficient in our work to help our communities. I want us to continue to see here in Joomla Day Poland the first ever to find ways to grow our community here. I don't know if there's a user group here in Poland, is there? Joomla User Group Poland. If we can make more of these user groups in our local communities and have a chance to meet people here at the event to grow them within our cities, we can really challenge each other to grow, to drink more beer and more Polish vodka, and of course just to enjoy our time together. So with that, I would like to skip 500 slides and do less of that and more of this. Thank you all very much.